So, what exactly happens when a destitute Thai duck herder and a highly jet-lagged Austrian toothpaste salesman team up? I know, it sounds like the start of a terrible joke, right? But I promise you, the punchline is actually one of the wildest, most incredible business stories of the last century.
Because this wildly unlikely cross-cultural partnership, it completely by accident birthed the modern energy drink industry. And we're talking about an industry that by 2015 had ballooned to a staggering valuation of nearly $65 billion. Seriously, just wrap your head around that number for a second. $65 billion. And it all started with just one single highly potent elixir.
So let's get right into it. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack the incredible true story of Red Bull. We'll look at exactly how a localized tonic meant for tired laborers morphed into this massive, global, extreme sports juggernaut. It is literally a masterclass in product positioning. Let's map it all out.
Part 1. The Working Class Elixir. To really grasp how this all happened, we've got to travel back to 1920s Thailand. It was a pretty grueling environment where most of the rural population was scraping by on roughly $2 a day. And it was right there, in that extreme poverty in 1923, that Chileo Yavijia was born to a family of duck herders. But Chileo, he changed his stars pretty fast. Duck herding wasn't exactly a path to wealth, So he moved hundreds of kilometers away to Bangkok to work in his older brother's chemistry shop. And while he was there, he just soaked up absolutely everything he could about antibiotics, chemistry, and sales. By 1962, he had actually saved up enough cash to found his very own company, TC Pharmaceuticals.
Now, Chileo was a really sharp observer. In the early 1970s, he noticed that the energy drinks dominating Thailand, like this Japanese import called Lipovitan D, they were being marketed exclusively to the wealthy elite of Bangkok. But Chileo had a light bulb moment. Coming from crippling poverty himself, he knew the wealthy weren't the ones who desperately needed energy drinks. The people who truly needed a boost, those were the exhausted, low-paid laborers pulling back-to-back grueling night shifts.
So here's the crucial point. Chaleo set out to engineer a cheap, highly effective performance boost specifically tailored for the working class. He analyzed the competition and ultimately settled on a core 4-part formula. He packed it with caffeine to act as a stimulant, B vitamins to boost cell metabolism, 2 different forms of sugar for that instant hit of energy, and then the star ingredient, taurine.
Okay, we need to address the elephant, or I guess the bull, in the room here. If you've spent literally any time on the internet, you've probably heard that wild rumor that taurine is made from bull's semen. It's a prime example of how myths spread like wildfire, but the reality is way less scandalous. Taurine is just a super important chemical compound for the human cardiovascular and central nervous systems. The name simply comes from the fact that it was first isolated from ox bile. Humans naturally synthesize it, though, fun fact, some mammals actually can't produce it on their own, including, sadly, cats. But for us humans, dumping extra taurine into a sleep-deprived bloodstream gives a massive, very real performance boost.
With this ultimate working-class formula fully locked in, Chileo needed a brand. He wanted something that just screams strength and potency. So he went with the Gore, which is this massive wild bovine native to Southeast Asia. I mean, these things are absolute units. They can reach 7 feet tall and weigh over 3,000 pounds. He slapped 2 red gores charging at each other against a golden disc on the label and named the drink Krating Dang, which translates directly to red gore.
But obviously, a great product needs great marketing. Rather than burning cash on expensive billboards in the middle of Bangkok, Chileo went straight to his target demographic. He used this genius grassroots strategy, sponsoring local Muay Thai fights way out in the provinces. And this timing? It aligned perfectly with a massive, unprecedented economic boom happening in Thailand. Krating Dang quickly became the unofficial beverage of this boom, literally a liquid symbol of working-class strength and perseverance. By the late 1970s, it was totally dominating the market, setting the stage for what would become a massive global phenomenon.
Part 2. Enter the Austrian salesman.
Meanwhile, halfway across the world in Europe, we meet Dietrich Mateschitz. Now, Dietrich wasn't exactly a boy wonder. Both his parents were primary school teachers, yet it somehow took him a full 10 years to graduate from university with a marketing degree. After bouncing around for a bit, he was actually making a living as a traveling salesman for a German company called Blendex. And his primary product? Toothpaste.
Now, in 1982, Dietrich took a business trip to Thailand. He stepped off the plane feeling completely wrecked by jet lag, so he decided to grab a local energy drink. He picked up a bottle of Krating Dang. Not only did it wake him up, but it completely cured his jet lag. Dietrich was instantly obsessed. He was allegedly putting down up to 8 cans a day. He saw the immense potential here, and in 1984 he tracked down Chaleo with a crazy pitch. They would each invest $500,000, create a new company, and take Krattendang global, a perfect 50-50 split. Chaleo agreed to handle manufacturing in Thailand, while Dietrich took on global operations. And honestly, it was a pretty daunting mission.
Part 3. Rebranding for the West.
So Dietrich had to figure out how to adapt a blue-collar Thai tonic into something that comfortable, affluent European consumers would actually want to buy. His pivot was deceptively simple, really. First, he was smart enough to leave Chaleo's chemical formula basically untouched. If an A broke, don't fix it, right? Second, to suit Western palates that were super used to sodas, he carbonated it. And third, rather than trying to make Krattendang work in German or English, he just went with the punchy, direct translation, Red Bull.
But dialing in the physical product was only half the battle. How exactly do you market an energy drink in Europe where the working class wasn't nearly as physically exhausted as in 1970s Thailand? Well, Dietrich realized his target audience wasn't laborers at all. It was party-going youth. But there was a major catch here. This demographic actively hated traditional advertising. So Dietrich kicked off a brilliant stealth marketing campaign. He hired popular university students to act as brand managers. He paid them to modify their VW Beetles with giant Red Bull cans strapped to the back and essentially bankrolled these massive student parties where free Red Bull was just handed out all night. This guerrilla tactic actually birthed legendary club cocktails like the Vodbomb. Red Bull didn't just sponsor the party, they quite literally became the party.
Part 4. The Extreme Marketing Machine.
Dietrich realized early on that association was everything. If he tied Red Bull to high-energy, high-adrenaline lifestyles, the drink would practically sell itself. Let's map out this explosive growth. In its very first year, 1987, Red Bull sold 1 million cans in Austria alone. By 1991, Dietrich launched the very first Flugtag event in Vienna. That's the one where people build those wildly unsafe homemade flying machines and launch them off a pier. It was hilarious, high energy, and completely on brand for their new slogan, Red Bull gives you wings. The brand just spread like wildfire across Europe. By the time they hit the US market in 1997, they were moving 1 million cans every single day.
But this budget breakdown right here is what truly separates Red Bull from a traditional beverage company. Back in 2011, Red Bull allocated a jaw-dropping $2.1 billion to alternative marketing. That represented 84% of their gross profit for the entire year. They aren't just a drink company that does some marketing on the side. They are a marketing empire that just so happens to sell a drink to fund itself.
So what on earth do they spend all that money on? An absolutely unparalleled sports empire. They sponsor everything you can think of, from freestyle motocross to downhill ice skating. They outright own 5 professional soccer teams, complete with their own stadiums. They bankroll not 1, but 2 Formula One racing teams, which is one of the most wildly expensive sports on the planet, and they've won multiple world championships. And of course, we can't forget the 2012 Strato space jump, where they paid Felix Baumgartner to skydive 24 miles down from the literal stratosphere. Their association with extreme human performance is just relentless.
Part 5. Lawsuits and Global Dominance.
You know, you really can't reach the absolute peak of consumer goods without ruffling a few feathers along the way. Today, the energy drink market is completely saturated. You've got these massive copycats like Monster and Rockstar fiercely competing for shelf space. Yet, despite this massive flood of competition, Red Bull still commands a massive 43% share of the global market. Their early mover advantage, combined with that impenetrable brand identity we just talked about, makes them nearly impossible to unseat.
But hey, global dominance does come with some pretty funny consequences. In 2013, Red Bull got hit with a class action lawsuit in the US. The claim that their legendary slogan, Red Bull gives you wings, was tantamount to false advertising. Yeah, you heard that right, because the drink didn't cause literal, physical wings to sprout from consumers' backs. They got sued. Now, rather than fight a protracted, expensive legal battle over a very obvious metaphor, Red Bull just settled for $13 million. They ended up sending out these small checks to consumers whose dreams of human flight were apparently shattered by a 12-ounce can. Honestly, you can't make this stuff up. But lawsuits aside, the legacy of this company is truly profound. The ultimate takeaway from today's explainer is this: how you sell something is just as important as what you sell. Think about it. A working-class endurance tonic, originally formulated to keep underpaid factory workers awake in 1970s Thailand, was completely transformed into the ultimate global symbol of extreme performance and youth culture. And they didn't even change the core ingredients. It happened through pure, unadulterated marketing genius.